Good evening, dear participants. Welcome back to lecture number 2 of this 14-day lecture series titled as Dialecsis, a series on contemporary critical theories. Today, as you can see on our screen, we have a young and very erudite scholar in the form of Dr. Barnashree Khasnobis, and she'll be speaking on formalism and structuralism. I welcome you, Dr. Barnashree, on behalf of Team DAATH. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation within such a short span of time.
Pleasure.
And on behalf of Team DAATH and Shreya ma'am, it is really an honor for me to introduce our resource person of the day, Dr. Barnashree Khasnobis, to all our dear participants. Dr. Barnashree presently is an assistant professor in the Department of English, Christu Jayanti College, Bangalore. She has completed her PhD from Indraprastha University, Delhi. In her thesis, she studied bandishes of Khayal as text and rendered a socio-cultural interpretation of the compositions. She has published her research papers in national and international journals, likes to explore topics related to medieval Indian culture, cultural interpretation of classical music, and Indian English poetry. And she finds delight in composing poems and has published her poems in anthologies at the national level. And as far as my limited knowledge about Dr. Barnashree is concerned, she is also a very good singer as well. She sings a lot and expresses her singings on various social media platforms, which y'all participants can explore later on. On behalf of Team DAATH, I welcome you once again. Thank you, Barnashree, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Speaking on a topic which will lay the foundation of the theories to come. Over to you, Dr. Barnashree.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, dear participants. Now, formalism and structuralism. So from this course, you will have an idea what are the key concepts of formalism and structuralism, who are the theorists, main theorists. You will be able to know how to apply theories. Okay, so I have selected one poem and one play, and once I have explained the theories and some of the main concepts, then we will embark at exploring how to apply theories. Okay, so now, yeah, so I would like to show you two images. Okay, two images. So look carefully, and so what is form, shape, structure, or content? Usually in literature, we talk about structure, content, form of poem. What is the form of a novel? What is the content of the poem? So what is how the poem is structured? So now, when you look at these two images, you see that a potter is giving form or shape or a structure. Okay, so now, the art that he is doing, the artist, okay, out here, the potter is an artist. So he is aligning to certain rules, certain principles of his, pertaining to his art form, pertaining to his occupation. He knows the formulas, he knows how much clay he would, put in the, wheel, how much, what amount of time is, how much amount of time is required, how much, what are the techniques that he requires to apply. So he knows his art, he knows the rules, he knows the principles. So now, potteries can be related to porcelain, or say clay pottery, earth pottery. Okay, so now the kind of material the artist gives the kind of material the artist uses to create a work of art, like a vessel, an earthen vessel, or a flower vase. So that kind of material, what kind of material is used, in what quantity is used, what are the rules that the artist follows. So when a potter tries to give shape or form to an earthen vessel, he is or she is applying certain rules and going by the principles. So as gradually the structure or the form of the vessel emerges, you get a content, you also get a structure. Okay, so form and content, they go hand in hand. Form and content are inseparable from each other. The kind of material an artist uses is the content. Okay, so if the artist is going by the rules, following the principles, so that is also content. And that content is giving a shape or structure to a particular work of art. So be it any work, any profession, any work of art. Okay, any artist, be it a poet, a novelist, a painter, for that matter, a painter is also, they all abide by certain set of principles, they all abide by certain set of rules, they know their art, and they follow those certain rules, certain principles, and they put in certain materials. If a painter is painting a picture, okay, he or she is going to select certain colors, certain color combinations. Okay, so all those brush strokes, the principles that he uses is inclined or is aligned towards content. And as gradually he or she delivers the content, a form emerges, a structure emerges. So form and content goes parallel. Okay, fine. Now, saying this, I will start explaining the concept of formalism. Studying literature involves studying language. Language delivers form and content to a work of art. Now, studying literature involves studying language. When you study a poem, when you interpret a poem, when you read a novel, you should also observe the language, how the language has been used. What are the devices that has been used? What are the principles that have been implemented? So studying literature involves studying language. We all use language differently because we all are different. Okay, my perception of the world is different. Maybe some basic perceptions would match, certainly, but my intrinsic character, the nature, that which makes Barnashree as Barnashree and you as you, so every one of us is different. So the way we are going to use language will vary. So when a poet, when a novelist, when a playwright, okay, they are composing a work of art, they are creating a work of art, they are using language in a certain way. And that language differs from ordinary speech. That language, the language of art, differs from ordinary speech. Okay, and language delivers form and content to a work of art. So form and content, I have explained you the concept of form and content, how form and content, they are inextricably linked, they can't be separated. Okay, as you know, we can't hierarchy, we can't have a hierarchy that content is supreme and form is basic, or form is in the higher order, content is in the lower order. We can't have an hierarchy. Okay, so language delivers form and content to a work of art. As a poet composes a poem, okay, communicates through a language, communicates his or her experiences, his or her opinions, worldviews. So when the poet, writes a poem, composes a poem, the poet is applying certain poetic devices, okay, certain metaphors, imageries, allusions, assonance, repetitions. So, these are some poetic devices that the poet is applying, and a content is on the go as well. That poet is also, communicating the content, and a form is generating, a form is emerging. Okay, so language delivers form and content to a work of art. Now, formalists, what formalists always intended to explore, they have always explored that how language operates. Formalism, from the term itself, you are getting an idea that how, or what is the objective of the formalists. The formalists, they keep on exploring that how language operates in two segments. In two areas, they explore that how language functions: prose narrative and poetry. So narrative in prose, okay, and they explore verse, how verse is written, how verses are composed. So prose narrative, operations of narrative, what is the, what kind of narration, how the narration is unfolding, what are the strategies implemented by the author to narrate. Okay, so narration, is it what kind of narration? First person, second person, anonymous narration? Is the is there a meta narrative? Is the narrative going backwards and forwards and again backwards? Okay, and poetry, sound in verse. So the rhyme that we have in poem, there are many types of poems, blank verse, free verse. So yet, even if a poem is blank verse or free verse, they always have an internal rhyme. They always have, certain concepts repeating, matching, okay, repetition of concepts. Now, from certain strategies, from certain principles, certain poetic devices, a sound emerges in every poem, a kind of rhythm emerges. So how that rhythm is accomplished by poets. So formalists engaged with exploring prose narrative and poetry, sound in verse. Next, approaches of formalism. How, what were the intentions of the formalists? So they tried, they always try to explore how poetic language is different from ordinary or practical language. As I said earlier, that ordinary speech is different from poetic discourse. Okay, the way we speak in everyday life is very much different from poetic language, poetic discourses. Now, for example, precipitation in the Iberian Peninsula is concentrated in the Central Plateau. This reads like a news reporting, okay? And if you want to be poetic, so in a poetic way, we can say the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain, okay? The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. So this is poetic speech. Then rejected notions of studying literature's historical and social causes of emergence, rejected notions of, I will continue. Yeah, so poetic speech, poetic language. Okay, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. So there is, repetition of particular consonant sounds. Okay, repetition of particular consonant sounds, repetition of similarly pronounced words. Okay, so, poetic speech, if, someone starts talking in poetic speech, that will be quite absurd, isn't it? So every day, if we, communicate with each other, rhyming words and, trying to be poetic. So, everyday speech is very much different from poetic speech. And the formalists engaged in exploring that how poetic speech is unique. What are the methodologies used by poets to form a poem, to compose a poem? And formalists rejected notions of studying literature's historical and social causes of emergence. Formalists always paid heed or always focused on exploring the methodologies used by, the techniques used by artists in the creation of a work of art. They considered, exploring historical emergence or social causes that had, that had triggered an author to, compose a particular poem or to, create a particular work of art is of no significance. They thought that it is irrational, it is not rational to study literature by placing literature or placing any poem, any novel, any play, any work of art for that matter, any painting. So they never thought that placing a text in relation to its social context is useful. They always rejected the notion of studying literature from a historical or socio-cultural perspective. Okay. Because why? Because they always engaged in exploring the methodology, the techniques of a work of art. Key feature of formalism: worked out the contrast between poetic and practical language that served as their basic principle. So this was their, basic mantra, that, poetic speech is unique, poetic speech is special, and how that uniqueness, how that artfulness is achieved. How that artfulness is achieved. Practical language is different, ordinary speech is different. But what makes poetry special? What gives poetry a rhythm, a rhyme? What are the internal laws? What are the formal elements? What are the rules or techniques that a poet or a novelist apply? Okay, how do they do that? Now, formalism started as a reaction against Impressionism and post-Impressionism. Impressionists gave importance to visual aspects of a work of art. They focused on subject matter. So formalism, there is a little background that I want to give you, that formalism started as a reaction or as a movement against Impressionism. Now, Impressionist painters, post-Impressionist painters, they always gave priority to the subject matter. They expressed their emotions. They expressed the inner turmoil, the emotions. Okay, so but on the canvas they expressed, but they obsessed. They were obsessed with the subject matter. So now the formalists they felt that the subject matter is not important. What is important, that how can you make a trivial subject matter into an elaborate and grand topic How can you make or transform a trivial subject matter into something elaborate, something beautiful, something unrecognizable, okay, something extraordinary. So it started as a reaction against Impressionism and post-Impressionism, because they always, these painters, these artists, okay, they always focused on expressing the subject matter. Okay, they were very much focused that the subject matter should be unique, the subject matter should not be conventional. Okay. Russian formalism, let's start with some, theoretical emergence episodes. So now Russian formalism started with Moscow Linguistic Circle in 1914 by Roman Jakobson. Roman Jakobson is one very important literary giant in the sector of Russian formalism. Then Opoyaz or Opoyaz, some people call it Opoyaz as well, Society for the Study of Poetic Language, founded in 1916 by Boris Eichenbaum, Viktor Schlotzsky, and Yuri Tinianov. So these were the three people who formed the Opoyaz group. Then comes another group, Prague Linguistic Circle, from 1926 to 1945. This continued for a good amount of years. Jakobson left Moscow for Prague in 1920, and in 1926 co-founded the Prague Linguistic Circle together with Nikolai Trubetskoy and others. They combined an interest in literary theory with an interest in linguistics, especially work of Ferdinand de Saussure. Now, these linguists, the later linguists, okay, who had formed the Prague Linguistic Circle, now they started, Jakobson, he was part of Moscow Linguistic Circle, but he had left Moscow and continued to explore the, scientific study of literature in Prague. And they were particularly very much interested in exploring, or, they were taking inspiration from the works of Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure's course in general linguistics, he started, this giving lectures on linguistics. So it started, the course in general linguistics started from 1906. Okay. So it started from 1906. So you see, the how the timeline is falling into place, that Roman Jakobson, he started Moscow Linguistic Circle, then came to Prague, and the Opoyaz group was also formed. Then Saussure's concepts were explored by these linguists. Okay, so yeah, some more features of the formalists, all of them emphasized on linguistics. What is linguistics? Linguistics is the scientific study of literature. Scientific study. Scientific study, by that, I mean rational study, applying logic, not from the perspective of, emotions. Okay, how audiences, what is the how the audiences are feeling, or the what the author is feeling. Okay, some scientific study that can be explained logically. Like, for example, if a poet is implementing poetic devices, so when the poetic laws are studied, so that is a scientific study, that is a rational study. Literature has its own set of internal rules, and those rules determine the form and content. So the formalists, they dealt with exploring the formal elements, how content is shaped, how content is structured, what is form, what is content. Okay, so they concentrated on the formal elements of any work of art, be it painting, be it novels, plays, poems, studying the formal elements of literature. Now come to Russian formalists and their concepts. So one very important theorist, Russian formalist, Boris Eichenbaum. His book, Theory of the Formal Method, is very seminal. It's a seminal book, Theory of the Formal Method. And what he does in this book, what he achieves, he debates. He debates about their formalist position. He feels that there is a need to explain why formalism is necessary, why formalists should do a scientific study. Why should formalists do a scientific study? Now, Boris Eichenbaum, from the Theory of Formal Method, I have taken some quotes for you so that you understand, what are the agendas, what were the agendas of these formalists. Okay. Neither formalism as an aesthetic theory nor methodology as a finished scientific system characterize us. We are characterized only by the attempt to create an independent science of our literature, which studies specifically literary material. We ask only for recognition of the theoretical facts of literary art as such. So he is clearly explaining that, we are not concerned about, the aesthetic theory. Okay, not the methodology as finished scientific systems, but we are focusing on the independent study of literature, independent scientific study of literature, how the literary material is organized. Okay, how the artist organizes the concepts, how the artist organizes his or her language. Okay, some theoretical facts they are dealing with. He felt that it is necessary to talk about or to debate about their formalist position. Okay, before the appearance of the formalists, academic research, quite ignorant of theoretical problems, made use of antiquated aesthetic, psychological, and historical axioms, and had so lost sight of its proper subject that its very existence as a science had become illusory. So now, before formalists, academic research only dealt with, focusing on historical paradigms, historical aspects, historical position of a work of art. Okay, but formalists, due to the contribution of the formalists, due to their engagements with formal elements, formal devices, and literature could also be studied as an independent scientific study. Literature could also be studied rationally, logically. Okay, we entered the fight against the symbolists in order to wrest poetics from their hands, to free it from its ties with their subjective, philosophical, and aesthetic theories, and to direct it toward the scientific investigation of facts. We were raised on their works and we saw their errors with the greatest clarity. So these are the lines from the Theory of Formal Method by Boris Eichenbaum. So as a formalist, he is clearly mentioning that, they did not approve of the symbolists who felt that subject matter is important, portraying unique concepts is important. Hence, our formalist movement was characterized by a new passion for scientific positivism, a rejection of philosophical assumptions, of psychological and aesthetic interpretations, etc. Art, considered apart from philosophical aesthetics and ideological theories, dictated its own position on things. So art has their own position. Every genre of art has their own position. Every genres of art has their own laws, own theories, own internal rules. And those internal rules were studied by formalists in a scientific way, in a systematic way. So science, what happens in science? Science gives birth to logic. Science, scientists, what do scientists do? Scientists engage with questions like how, why, how is it happening, why is it happening? Okay, so similarly, formalists dealt with these questions, that why, the structure of a work of art is in this way, how the structure of this work has emerged. So they explored the genres of art in a systematic way. Next, Yuri Tinianov, Thesis on Language, along with Roman Jacobson. This is a book, Thesis on Language. He wrote this book along with Roman Jacobson. What he feels that literary science must have terminologies. So Yuri Tinianov opined that literary science, look at the word literary science, literature should be read in a scientific, should be interpreted in a scientific way, and literary science must have certain terminologies, certain jargons that are specific to literature. Important to study the structural laws of literature, systematic analysis of literature's evolution, systematic analysis of literature's evolution. So how literature has evolved through the course of time, through the period of time, but in that way, they would be studying language, the evolution of language also. Okay, the way Shakespeare wrote plays, the way Shakespeare, the Shakespearean language is entirely different from the language the modern playwrights use today. So, it's not about historical evolution, how literature evolved historically, but how literature evolved through language, linguistically. So scientific study of language, how language kept on evolving and literature kept on changing. Now I will come to Roman Jacobson. Okay, so Roman Jacobson's work, Functions of Language. Roman Jacobson, according to him, there are six functions of language. Six. Okay, first is referential, then poetic. Okay, there is no hierarchy, so you can go like referential, metalingual, phatic. You can also go like this: referential, poetic, emotive, conative, phatic, and metalingual. So there is this central message, any message, okay? Opinion, ideas, anything, any particular concept that you want to explain, any message. Even if when I'm giving this lecture to you, so I am delivering a message, I have a message for you. So my message can have six functions of language, okay? Referential, poetic, emotive, conative, phatic, and metalingual. What is referential? Denotative meaning, context specific meaning. Now, what is denotative meaning? Now, in language, meanings are at two levels. They function at two levels, denotative and connotative. Denotative is the literal meaning, the direct meaning. Connotative meanings, deal with metaphorical meanings. Okay, indirect meanings, something that is implied. Okay, when we talk in metaphors, when we compare, when we use comparisons, similes, okay, so that is, you know, connotative meaning. Okay, when we are using poetic devices. Okay, so that is connotative meaning. Denotative is the direct meaning, context specific. On this day you celebrate your birthday, so this is a direct meaning. Today is my birthday. Today, we are attending the session on formalism and structuralism. So this is referential. Emotive triggers emotions. Wow, this is breathtakingly beautiful. Emotive meanings, okay? So then metalingual, use of codes, certain proverbs, idioms, culture-specific proverbs. So now, you know, if I am talking about proverbs, if I use a particular proverb pertaining to my culture, will you be able to decode? Will you be able to understand the same proverb? Will you be able to get the meaning of that proverb? So metalingual, are we using the same code? Okay, metalingual. If I am, you know, language is always coded. Every word is coded. Every word, every sentence is coded. And to understand this lecture, you need to know the English language. So every language is coded. If you don't know the English language, you won't be able to understand my lecture. So every word is coded. Are we using the same code? Are we sharing the same code? Okay. Metalingual. It has layers of meaning. A particular word can have multiple meanings. Okay. Poetic. How codes are used specific to poetry. Poetic. Okay. Poetic aspect, poetic function of language. How codes are used. Conative, direct address. Come here, lock the door, look at the board, turn off the light. Okay, conative aspect of language. Pay attention. If during my lecture I tell you pay attention, so that has conative aspect. Phatic establishes contact. Phatic is a function which is directly addressed to, you know, by the speaker to the listener. Establishes contact. Hello, okay, bye. Okay, these are phatic. Okay, now come to, this is all about Roman Jakobson. I will move forward with some more theories and concepts of Roman Jakobson because he is a very seminal figure in formalism and structuralism. So we'll explain the formalists, and then in the, you know, when I will start structuralism, some of his concepts I will be explaining in that portion. So now come to Victor Schlotzsky, a formalist. He wrote Theory of Prose in 1925 and Art as Device. And in that work, he included a chapter, Art as Technique, 1917. Okay, Art as Technique. So by the title itself, you know, you can start to anticipate that, you know, what was his idea. Art as technique. Okay, now these are the lines of Schlotzsky from the essay Art as Technique. What he says, the purpose of art is to impart the sensation of things as they are perceived and not as they are known. The technique of art is to make objects unfamiliar, to make forms difficult, to increase the difficulty and length of perception because of the process of the artfulness of the object. The object is not important. So he says the purpose of art is to impart the sensation of things as they are perceived, not as they are known. When you look at the moon, when in a dark night, you look at a full moon, how you feel, what you feel. So what are the metaphors that you are going to apply? Now, an example is coming to my mind. There is this novel, The Book Thief. So the protagonist was asked to describe the sun. Okay. Now the protagonist describes the sun as a silver oyster, not the sun as something gloomy. The sun looks gloomy. No, the sun looks like a silver oyster. Okay, so the sun may appear gloomy. This is an ordinary, perception. This is an ordinary, perception. Now, how you feel when you look at the sun, how the protagonist felt. So, what was the sensation? What was the emotion? Now, is it possible to describe your emotions through poetic devices, through metaphors? Yes, it is. And formalists aimed at exploring that how ordinary concepts, daily life concepts, day-to-day concepts, trivial concepts, anything, any object can be presented or represented as something unfamiliar. Because when you look at an unfamiliar thing, you gasp, you exclaim, you feel that you have experienced something wonderful, something beautiful, or maybe something strange, something bizarre. Okay, so now when you start to say internalize your own feelings, how you felt, what you felt, you are lingering in that feeling, in that moment, and thereby you are getting an aesthetic experience. Okay, so in the process you are experiencing the artfulness of the object. The object is not important. Okay, so Schlotzsky says the object is not important. What is important, that how you represent that object through unique metaphors or through poetic devices, which would make that concept, that particular concept, as unfamiliar, something you have not seen before, something you have not sensed before. Then recognize them by their main characteristics. An artwork and a work of art should be recognized by their main characteristics. Now, Schlotzsky explains all these things, all his ideas through Leo Tolstoy. So he keeps giving examples, from Leo Tolstoy's novels. Now, he says, I quote, "In War and Peace, Tolstoy uses the same technique in describing whole battles as if battles were something new." Okay, so see, if Tolstoy would have explained the concept of battle in a very mundane, ordinary way, you would not have enjoyed Tolstoy. No one would have enjoyed Tolstoy. But Tolstoy explains battles as if something new, as if he implements certain words, he implements certain concepts, certain comparisons, which would make the concept, which would transform the concept of battle as something new. Okay, I repeat that the perception of disharmony in a harmonious context is important in parallelism. The purpose of parallelism, like the general purpose of imagery, is to transfer the usual perception of an object into the sphere of new perception. That is to make a unique semantic modification. Semantic modification. Okay, conventions, concepts could be conventional, concepts could be repetitive, but the representation should not be conventional. The representation should be always organic. Okay, something new. Now, look at this painting. This is a painting by an Indian painter, okay, Hemant Dwivedi. So when you look at this painting, what do you feel? You know, like there is a simple use of color, okay, and there is a figure of man, and some locks are open, some locks are not open, okay. This lock is closed, this lock is you know, open. Some of the locks, this lock is open. So now see, when you look at this painting, you get this message that, you know, the painter is trying to convey that some portions of our mind is blocked. Certain things we can't perceive, and we can perceive certain things. Chaos of mind. Yeah. Okay. Chaos of mind. Anyone else? Chaos of mind. Looking at the picture, it seems like some parts of our mind is locked and we don't use our full potential. Mental blocks. Yeah, certain thoughts are unlocked and some yet to be explored. Yeah, very good. Okay, very interesting observations. Yes, inner conflicts also. But see, this is a very unique way to portray the same concept of mental locks, mental blocks. Okay, so now, you know, this is called defamiliarization. The topic is familiar to all of us, the concept is familiar, but when you look at it, when we look at it, we are spending some time, we are making efforts, we are giving some time to decode the painting. What could be the possible meanings? Controlled thoughts, okay, how we are familiarized by certain things, and similarly defamiliarized, which is represented by unlocked and locked locks. Yes, beautiful. Yeah, so many things are to be opened, so many locks, and inability to express the uncertainty of thoughts. Yes. Okay, so when we look at this painting, we are realizing, we are, you know, undergoing through the, you know, process of decoding. And, you know, when we look at it, somehow, you know, we are, you know, trying to guess the meanings, trying to unfold the meanings of a familiar concept. So the familiar concept has been presented in a defamiliar way, defamiliarization. Schlotzsky's main idea was defamiliarization. Okay. Now, I will talk about how to apply the theory of defamiliarization in Waiting for Godo. Now, most of you must have read Waiting for Godo. You know the story. So I will read out the slide and then will give my explanation. Because you know, it's the application of the theory, and so read along with me so that, you know, everything becomes clear. Lucky and Pozo do not remember meeting Vladimir and Estragon. Loss of memory, the two characters, unfamiliarity with the other two characters presents a familiar situation to the audiences, vis-a-vis forgetfulness in an unfamiliar way. The theory of defamiliarization essentializes the methodology of representing a concept or an object in a novel way, where the object of art is not important. The absurd nature of human life has been redesigned through the inconsequential engagements between Vladimir and Estragon, which seem absurd to the audiences. Due to this creative representation of absurdity, audiences perceive the contexts of the play as unfamiliar, thereby the effective application of the technique of defamiliarity by Bertolt Brecht. So you see, when we read Waiting for Godot, we tried to, you know, understand that what is the message, why the author presented the story in this way. Why these two protagonists, why Vladimir and Estragon, or Lucky and Pozo, they do not remember. Okay, Lucky and Pozo do not remember meeting Vladimir and Estragon. Vladimir and Estragon, they every day they get beaten up. They are repeating the same actions. They are performing the same actions. They are, waiting for Godo. Vladimir and Estragon, they talk about inconsequential, unimportant things. One tries to take off his boots, and another one, can't understand if they came again, if they were there on the same spot yesterday, or for how long they have been waiting, how long they have been continuing this way. So the continuation, the repetition, the cycle of human life, the our daily day-to-day activities, getting up in the morning, waking up, getting ready, getting dressed, and going to work, then again coming back home. Some of us still have work even after coming back from work. So, and then at the night we are sleeping, again getting up in the morning. So this, continuous cycle that we participate in, it continues again and again. It keeps on, it consistently continues. And, this familiar topic, this familiar idea was presented through Vladimir and Estragon. How Vladimir and Estragon keep on doing the same thing again and again. They keep on repeating their weight again and again. So now the play seemed bizarre. The play seemed something absurd, but this absurdity became important. This absurdity became instrumental in giving, or in making the play unfamiliar. So once we see, observe, or experience something unfamiliar, we undergo an aesthetic experience. We perceive the same topic but in a different way. And that is the artfulness. That is the artfulness of a work of art. Now, this is, I have extracted a little bit from the play. Okay, so you can read it. Vladimir says, "Sometimes I feel it coming all the same, then I go all cure." He takes off his hat, peers inside it. He feels about inside. Feels about inside it, shakes it, puts it on again. How shall I say? Relieved, and at the same time, he searches for the word. Appalled, with emphasis. Appalled. He takes off his hat again, peers inside it. Funny. He knocks on the crown as though to dislodge a foreign body, peers into it again, puts it on again. Nothing to be done. Estragon, with a supreme effort, succeeds in pulling off his boot. He peers inside it, feels about inside it, turns it upside down, shakes it, looks on the ground to see if anything has fallen out, finds nothing, feels inside it again, staring sightlessly before him. Well, okay. Now, to transform the concepts into unfamiliar experiences, artists speak through metaphors, increasing the difficulty and length of perception, because the time invested in unraveling the meaning would heighten aesthetic experiences of readers or audiences. The futile attempts of Vladimir to remove his boots and a meaningless search ascertains the repeated attempts of humans in quest of desires. Bertolt Brecht, in Waiting for Godo, redecorates the myth of Sisyphus through Vladimir's and Estragon's repetitive actions, waiting for Godo. Their acknowledgement to each other about being present in an unfamiliar situation accentuates the experience of unfamiliarity among the audiences. Schlotzsky's defamiliarization can be seen operating within the play through presentation of habitual circumstances as strange circumstances. So there is the myth of Sisyphus, that Sisyphus will keep rolling the stone up the mountain, and then again he will roll down the stone. So this, this eternal wait, the eternal quest of human life, of the search of, maybe for example, say our desires for name, fame, ambition, it never stops, it never ends. Okay, so these are some hidden concepts, some implied concepts that are being, which have been defamiliarized, presented in an unfamiliar way through waiting for Godo. Now, next I will start structuralism, thereby I end formalism. Okay, I will again conclude the the talk by talking about what are the main points of formalism, features. Okay, now let's come to structuralism. Structuralism derives both historically and logically from formalism. So, by the term itself, formalism and structuralism, formalism, form, structuralism, structure. Okay, so formalism and structuralism have a connection, have a link, but they are little different also. We will find out how it is different. Now, a structure is both like a skeleton and like a genetic code, in that it is the principle of stability and coherence in any cultural system, while also being the principle of action that allows the culture to exist in time as a living thing. So a structure is both like a skeleton and a genetic code. Okay, so a structure, a skeleton looks like a structure. Okay, the bones that we have inside our body gives a shape, gives a form. Okay, and it is like a genetic code, in that it is the principle of stability and coherence in any cultural system. It functions like a code. It is very essential for any cultural system, any culture to operate. Now, for example, Indian culture, for so long, it is continuing. So why is that continuing? What is the structure of the Indian culture? Okay, it has a structure. It is like a solid, while also being the principle of action that allows the culture to exist in time as a living thing. So a culture never, uh, pauses. It keeps on growing. It keeps on expanding. It keeps on living. So as long as a structure is there, the culture will live on. Okay, and the structure of a culture could be a language.
Dear participants, I guess there's an internet lag on the part.
So structuralism derives both historically and logically. I hope you have heard this. So yeah, now, there is a connection between structuralism and formalism. And, in some ways, structuralism is different from formalism. Now, let's look at, some theorists, their concepts, and then we will discuss how these two movements are similar and how they are dissimilar. Now, Ferdinand de Saussure, the most seminal figure in structuralism. So, Course in General Linguistics, his book was published posthumously in 1916. And this was actually a result of his lectures. Okay, it was all his lectures were collaborated, and Course in General Linguistics was finally published in 1916. Notable ideas of Saussure. What are the notable ideas? Language is a socially structured phenomena that can be synchronically and diachronically studied. What is synchrony? Synchronically studied at any given point of time. Language can be studied at any given point of time. Okay, maybe you can study language, the patterns of language, how language operates, how language functions at the present time. Okay, and diachronically, different periods in history, how language kept evolving through time. Then langue and parole. Langue represents a system of rules, usages, meanings, and structures that are products of the human ability to create language and are shared by members of a specific speech community. So langue represents the rules, the organization of rules. If we are speaking in a particular language, if I am speaking in English, if I am speaking in Bengali, in any other language, Hindi, okay, so what are the rules? Every language has a set of rules, has a grammar, has a system. Okay, so every culture, okay, speaking a particular language will use those rules. Okay, so langue represents a system of rules, usages, meanings, and structures that are products of the human ability to create language and are shared by members of a specific speech community, that is a culture, or the agents, cultural agents, the members of the culture, of a culture. Okay, we any communities will have a culture, and they will share a particular language, and they all will follow certain principles, certain rules. Okay, because if they don't follow, then they will not make sense to each other. So langue represents a system of rules. Parole is often equated with speech. It is the concrete realization of a collectively internalized system and also reflects the personality, creativity, and physiological capabilities of an individual speaker. Parole. Parole is the speech, the uh, you know oral language that we are dealing with, the speaking, our speech. So the words that I'm using will differ from yours. Okay, if I ask you to talk about structuralism, you may use you may organize the words in a different way. Okay, you may organize certain words in a different way. So it depends on the individual person. Okay, if I am going to write a poem, compose a poem on a particular topic, for example, say the autumn season, that is my favorite season. So if I'm going to compose a poem on autumn season, now another person is composing on the same topic, but we will have different ways. Okay, so if I'm going to talk about say equality, I will be using a different set of words. I will be, my creativity level will be different. So parole, depends on the individual differences. Okay. Now, next concept, signifier and signified. These two concepts are very, very important in structuralism and also in formalism. If you want to understand formalism, theories related to formalism, you must understand the fundamental difference between signifier and signified. Now, what is a signifier and signified? first of all, okay, read the lines given by Saussure. This is, these are the lines by Saussure. The linguistic sign, it has been taken from a course in general linguistics from one chapter. The linguistic sign unites not a thing and a name, but a concept and a sound image. The latter is not the material sound, a purely physical thing, but the psychological imprint of the sound, the impression that it makes on our senses. So a linguistic sign links, any word can become a linguistic sign, any concept can become a linguistic sign. And what a linguistic sign does, it links a concept and a sound image. Your concept, the concept that is, that you are perceiving, that you have perceived, and the sound image. So a linguistic sign links concept and sound image. Now, for example, when I say tree, you think about the pattern of a tree. You don't think about a specific tree, any orange tree, apple tree, lemon tree. No, you are thinking about a tree with its branches. Okay, tree as a linguistic sign. So the signifier is the image of tree appearing in your mind. Okay, signifier and signified. What are the signified? What are the different concepts? Greenery, shade, oxygen, life, nature, fulfillment. When I say tree, there is a sound image in your mind. You are forming a visual image of a tree. That is the signifier. And signified, when you think about a tree, what you could come about, you can come about with greenery, shade, oxygen, life, nature. So these are all signified, these are concepts. So a linguistic sign links concepts and sound image. Now, next, yes, as I said that I will be continuing Roman Jakobson's concepts and theories. So Roman Jakobson and all the formalists, they were very much interested in exploring Saussure's ideas, and they took inspiration from Saussure's ideas. So now Roman Jakobson, as a structuralist, he, extended his research on linguistic science. So now he wrote this book with Maurice Hall, Fundamentals of Language, and he gave the two kinds of linguistic sign, how they function, how a linguistic sign functions. A linguistic sign functions through selection and combination. And he was concerned with the literariness of the text, the artfulness of the text. Okay, Schlotzsky talked about artfulness of the text, Roman Jakobson, literariness of the text. Now, linguistic sign, a linguistic sign operates through selection and combination. Selection, substitution, combination, replacement. I will explain more about selection and combination, but gradually. Let's read this slide, and then I will go on explaining what is selection and combination, and how substitution and replacement, they go hand in hand when we in any work of art. Okay, when we communicate or in any work of art, we combine signs to send a message. We sequentially arrange the words. So now when we want to deliver a message, we sequentially arrange words. Language operates through syntagmatic and paradigmatic relations. What is syntagmatic? Syntagmatic means combination. Paradigmatic, replacement or substitutional relationships. Now, syntagmatic combinations: cold outside, God is good, sunny day, true love. So, certain words, when I say certain words, there is always, there is always a combination. Okay, cold outside, raining outside, hot inside, God is good or God is great. It is a sunny day. So, the expectancy, your the word that you are expecting when I say sunny is quite obvious that it will be a sunny day. Okay, so there are certain syntagmatic combinations. When I talk about love, true love, okay, syntagmatic combinations, they keep certain linguistic signs, they perform in combinations. Now, paradigmatic relations. When I say the word salary, what are the synonyms of salary? What all comes to your mind? Wage, remuneration, payment. Okay, wage, remuneration, payment. Rhyme is due to paradigmatic substitution. So, when a poet composes a poem, a poet will reject certain words and select certain words. Okay, he will or she will reject certain words and select only specific words. Now it depends it depends on the poet, that which word that the poet will be selecting to give an internal rhyme. What are the consonant sounds that the poet feels should be repeated to give an internal rhyme? Now we will find out how to do a syntagmatic and paradigmatic analysis of poetry after 2-3 slides. Now, yeah, two aspects of language and two types of aphasic disturbances. This is another crucial work by Roman Jacobson, okay, in 1956. Now he says language has a bipolar structure. It has a bipolar structure, metaphor and metonymy. Metaphoric, there are two poles, metaphoric and metonymic poles. Verse is metaphoric, prose is metonymic. Novelists, playwrights, essayists, they always intend in developing the meaning one by one by selecting certain words, by combining certain words, not selecting, by combining certain words. So they deal with syntagmatic combinations. Now poets, on the other hand, they try to bring paradigmatic relations. They omit certain words, they include certain words. Okay, they try to figure out which metaphor to include, what are the not exactly how the metaphor should be applied, where it should be applied. Okay, so verse is metaphoric, verse is paradigmatic. Metaphoric pole undertakes science on the principle of similarity. Metaphoric poles, as I said, when I say the word salary, wage, remuneration, payment, all these words come to your mind, all these synonyms come to your mind. So these words are similar, they are they are from the same semantic field. Okay, so metaphoric pole undertakes science on the principle of similarity. Similar when we make comparisons. Metaphors, what are metaphors? Metaphors are comparisons. So when we are using metaphors, we are comparing. It means we are drawing a similarity. Metonymic pole undertakes science based on contiguity, on continuous, okay, combinations. What are the words that could be combined to bring the meaning, to give out the meaning? Metonymic poles. Now, next, Roman Jacobson talks about similarity disorder. This is another important terminology that is very much essential to understand the paradigmatic and syntagmatic analysis. Similarity disorder. So what happens in similarity disorder? Now, Roman Jacobson, he had studied certain patients who had speech problems. Okay, so he delved into a scientific investigation that how certain people, certain children have speech problems. Now, what is similarity disorder? When a person is unable to begin a sentence, unable to select and substitute words because the patient cannot recognize distinctions between words or signs and confused with their similarity, cannot recognize word without contents, confused between synonyms and antonyms. They call knife as bread knife, apple cutter, apple parer. When the selective capacity is strongly impaired and the gift for combination at least partly preserved, then contiguity determines the patient's whole verbal behavior, and we may designate this type of aphasia similarity disorder. Now, I will explain, okay? Now, in similarity disorder, what happens? A patient suffers from confusion. They don't understand the synonyms and they can't choose the antonyms. They are confused between this whole vast dictionary of words. But in similarity disorder, what happens? They have a strong sense of contiguity. They keep on combining. Their sense of combination is strong. So that is why they call a knife a bread knife. They are combining. Okay. So the sense of combiguity or the contiguity, I'm sorry, the gift for combination at least partly preserved. So, their gift of combination. So the contiguity. So, words or the meaning should be, combined with another object. An object should be combined with another object. A linguistic sign, a sign should be combined with another sign. So those patients combine one sign with another sign to, communicate. Okay. So they cannot recognize word without contents. Metaphor is alien to similarity disorder. They won't be able to use metaphor. Metaphor is alien to similarity disorder. Now come to contiguity disorder. The patient may have a good vocabulary but unable to combine words. It is just the opposite of similarity disorder. Okay, unable to combine words, loss of grammar, unable to place words in a continuous order of, continuous order according to the grammatical laws, according to the grammatical principles. Contiguity disorder, this contextual deficient aphasia, which could be termed the contiguity disorder, is diminished. It diminishes the extent and variety of sentences. This loss, called agrammatism, causes the degeneration of the sentence into a mere word heap. Metonymy is alien to contiguity disorder. Meanings will not evolve, meanings will not emerge because the patient is unable to, sequentially arrange words, combine words. Okay. Now, the similarity disorder and the contiguity disorder are the two aphasic disturbances in a patient. Okay, the similarity disorder and the contiguity disorder. These are the two aphasic disturbances. Now, I will talk about the explanation or the application of the syntagmatic and paradigmatic relation in the context of the poem The Hollow Men. Okay, you can read this. I haven't given a complete analysis of the poem from the perspective of syntagmatic and paradigmatic because we don't have that much time in our hand to do a complete analysis of the poem from these two philosophies. Okay, two concepts, two theories, paradigmatic and syntagmatic. So I have taken some bits from the poem and interpreted it in the light of paradigmatic and syntagmatic concepts. You can read this poem, this one stanza. Okay, so I begin. Now, The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot. Most of you are acquainted with this poem. Now, we are the hollow men, we are the stuffed men, leaning together, headpiece filled with straw, alas. Our dried voices, when we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless, as wind in dry grass, or rats' feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. Now, to express the modern crisis of human angst and alienation, Eliot chooses the word hollow, which operates as a signifier signifying emptiness, void, vacuum, desolation. Okay, out here, where is, yeah. Out here, I have mistaken. It's please don't consider this word worthless. Consider it as desolation. Okay. Now, I will read this slide and then gradually explain you the meaning, how to give a syntagmatic or paradigmatic analysis of a poem. To express the modern crisis of human angst and alienation, Eliot chooses the word hollow, which operates as a signifier signifying emptiness, void, vacuum, and desolation. So these are the, emptiness, void, vacuum, desolation. These are the various signifieds. Okay, these are the various signifieds that come to your mind. These are the various concepts that come to your mind when you hear the word hollow. Hollow is the signifier. From the order of this vertical axis, he prioritizes hollow to signify the above concepts, replacing words like empty, void, vacant, worthless, or vacuum, desolation. Okay, so now, this is a vertical order. You can see this arrow, okay, over here under hollow. Under hollow, there is this vertical arrow I have placed, and these are the various signifieds: empty, vacant, void, vacuum, desolation, okay, worthless. So these are the, various synonyms or nearby meanings of hollow. These are the various signifieds of hollow. This is the vertical axis. Now he prioritizes, he could have selected the word empty, he could have selected the word vacant, but he selects the word hollow. So he prioritizes this word hollow. In the next line, he says stuffed men. In the next line, stuffed placed as an opposition to hollow, indicating the absence and presence of emptiness. Stuffed represents packed, jammed, padded. Hollow represents a structure which is empty, but can be filled or packed. The words hollow and stuffed can be perceived as binaries, but function as metaphorical emblems chosen from two similar vertical axes under a shared context. So you see in the next line when he says stuffed and hollow, these are, these are two binaries, these are two opposite concepts. Okay, and he uses the word stuffed instead of using packed, padded, jammed. Okay, but he uses the word stuffed. Now, these two words, hollow and stuffed, may look like opposites, may appear like opposites. They are working as binaries, but they belong to the same semantic field. They share the same context of meaning, hollow and stuffed, okay, from the same, say, antonyms and synonyms. from the same field of semantics. Okay, so now paradigmatic analysis is to combine words belonging from the vertical axis, selection and replacement. So paradigmatic analysis is all about selection and replacement. He selects hollow, replaces empty, vacant, void, vacuum, desolation. The poet goes ahead with his expression of life's purposelessness through paradigmatic substitutions. The metaphors dry grass and broken glass represents two vertical axes of paradigm, similar paradigm of meaning, which indicate synonyms such as parched, thirst, brittle, and damaged, cracked, crushed. Such metaphoric substitutions are implemented to reveal the dominant concepts of a poem, giving or shaping its internal rhyme. So now, in the next stanza, when you read ahead, okay, the purposelessness of life of modern men, this concept has been explained through metaphors of dry grass and broken glass. Now, the consonant sounds are repeated, okay? The g consonant sound has been repeated. Grass and glass, they have the same consonant sounds. They begin with the same consonant sounds. Dry grass and broken glass. But these metaphors, dry grass and broken glass, dryness indicates devoid, something devoid of moisture, oxygen, something which is brittle, something which is dried, which is parched, which can be damaged, which can be cracked and crushed. Now, he chooses dry grass and broken glass, these metaphors, to display, to represent the concept of purposelessness. And this purposelessness, the concept, has been elaborated through similar consonant sounds, by using similar consonant sounds to give an internal rhyme. He doesn't use the words, he doesn't select the words parched, thirst, or brittle, damaged glass, damaged grass, okay, cracked, crushed. But he uses these two particular metaphors to bring out an internal rhyme. Next stanza, this is the dead land, this is cactus land. Here the stone images are raised, here they receive the supplication of a dead man's hand under the twinkle of a fading star. Again, the concepts of dry, arid, perished, lifelessness are some of the words which are homologous to the word dead in the poem. The dryness or lifelessness has been continued by replacing and combining synonymous words. So you see in the entire poem, when you keep reading the poem, you will find out that the paradigmatic relation is continuing. The replacing and combination of words is continuing, replacement and then substitution, selection and combination. It is continuing throughout the poem. From the vertical axis, that is paradigmatic axis, and from the horizontal axis, that is syntagmatic axis. In horizontal axis, we have combinations such as, for example, when I say fading star. What is fading? It is quite obvious. It is very much predictable that a star is fading star. Okay, so this has been combined. Okay, twinkle of a fading star. This falls in the horizontal axis, horizontal plane of syntagmatic, of syntagmatic axis. Now, dry grass, broken glass, okay, stone images, dead man's hand, these metaphors come under the vertical axis, that is the paradigmatic axis. Okay, so metaphors are, metaphors belong to the paradigmatic axis. The syntagmatic combinatory law of the poem is apparently comprehensible through the concept of fading star. The principle of paradigmatic combinations functions through metaphors, and those metaphors increase the meaningful association of contexts. So the same semantic concepts are repeated using different metaphors. Associated, the same meaningful contexts are associated by using metaphors. That is how, contexts are connected. Okay, and meaning is brought. The principle of syntagmatic combinations show linear progression of language, such as we are the hollow men and this is the dead land, etc. So, this is the sequential arrangement of words according to the grammatical laws, rules, or, usual combination of words. Linear progression, it is progressing linearly. That is, the vertical axis, the syntagmatic combination. Sorry, the horizontal axis, okay? The form of a poem is structured through the application of paradigmatic principle, because metaphoric expressions become significant in poetic discourses and organization of meanings. Now you see, this is the dead land. This could be ordinary speech also. This could be a message. I'm just saying this is the dead land, or this is the month of August. This is the month of February, whatever. Okay, so now these are the statements. These are the syntagmatic combinations, which are definitely important. But the most important point is the paradigmatic combinations in a poem, how metaphors are combined, how metaphors are selected. So the form of a poem, the structure of a poem is shaped through the application of metaphors. Okay, form of a poem is something invisible. You can't see the form of a poem, but you can, when you keep on reading, you would feel the internal rhyme. Okay, so the paradigmatic principle is because of the metaphoric expressions, which is very much important, and tops the hierarchy of syntagmatic and paradigmatic relation. So paradigmatic combinations are the most important element in poetic discourses. And the law of syntagm is inherent both in poetry and prose, in novels or in poetry. The syntagm law, the law of syntagmatic relations, the horizontal, from the horizontal axis, the combinations is, very much, inherent. Signs are organized into codes in two ways, by paradigms and by syntagms. The distinction between paradigmatic and syntagmatic structures is a key one in structuralist semiotic analysis. These two dimensions are often presented as axes, where the vertical axis is the paradigmatic and the horizontal axis is the syntagmatic. The plane of the paradigm is that of selection and replacement, okay, also replacement, while the plane of the syntagm is that of combination. Now, these are some lines of Jacobson. You can read ahead. The addressee perceives that the given utterance or message is a combination of constituent parts, sentences, words, phonemes selected from the repository of all possible constituent parts, codes. The constituents of a context are in a state of contiguity, while in a substitution, set signs are linked by various degrees of similarity, which fluctuate between the equivalence of synonyms and the common core of antonyms. Now, there I end Roman Jacobson and I begin Claude Levi-Strauss, another important figure in the structuralist movement. Claude Lévi-Strauss. Now, what are the concepts that he had given? He opined that human mind perceives the world in terms of binary opposites. Binary opposites, good, bad, evil, angel, pure, impure, darkness, light. So human mind, have this tendency, have this innate characteristic to perceive the world in terms of opposites. Every culture has underlying structures that shape perceptions. Human culture is an expression of the underlying structures of human mind. Every culture has underlying structures that shape perceptions. So every culture, every culture will have a structure that regulates or that governs perceptions, that builds perception. His book, Elementary Structure of Kinship, and his essay or his concept, Alliance Theory, in that he states that, women used to be exchanged in the primitive society to have a harmonious society. Structural anthropology, this is a very, very crucial work by Claude Lévi-Strauss in the year 1963, and what he mentioned in structural anthropology, he said that every culture has immutable deep structures, and every culture, and those deep structures are universal also. Then another concept he gave, he felt that, the European civilization, which takes pride in its civilization, in its culture. Okay, so he critiqued that society, and he opined that the mind of the civilized is equals to the mind of the savage, because the mind of the civilized and the mind of the savage follow the same structures. They follow the same deep structures, and those structures are universal. They follow the same structures. They perceive the world in binary opposites. For Levi-Strauss, structuralism implies a search for deep, invisible, and innate structure universal to humankind. Now, he had analyzed 813 myths, and he had analyzed the Oedipus myth also. And he had segmented the myths into deep structures and surface structures. So deep structures would be, if say, for example, Oedipus kills his mother, Oedipus marries his mother Jocasta, kills his father Laius. So this is the deep structure. And the surface structure, the blood relations, okay, the blood relations, the surface structure, the essential structure that, the protagonist would be related in blood, and would be doing harm to those who are related to him. And this deep structure is, he would defeat the monster, he would have victory over the evil, but how his life would end in tragedy. So myths are composed of mythemes, smallest component parts of a myth, smallest component parts. Now, mythemes, the concept of mytheme, he takes inspiration from the concept of phonemes, that is the most small or the smallest unit of a word. Okay, so myths are composed of mythemes, smallest component parts of a myth. Myth is a bricolage of cultural elements. Bricolage, what is bricolage? Characteristic pattern of mythology. So he says that, every myth has a pattern. Okay, they follow a pattern, and he had analyzed 813 myths. Now, for example, engineers use old ideas to create something new. And Saussure had contradicted with Strauss, felt that there is no first-hand or second-hand material, rather every material pre-existed. Next concept, the totemism, 1962. Tribals believe that they are descendants of an animal or plant and animate or inanimate objects, which led to their kinship between nature. Questions how the phenomena of totemism is organized. He also talks about totemism. What is totemism? He opined that tribals always felt that they are descendants of from an animal or plant or inanimate objects, which leads them to worship nature. Okay, so now he also analyzed that what is the reason behind this perception. Okay, that is the totemism. This is called totemism. Now come to C.S. Peirce, Charles Sanders Peirce. He gives three kinds of signs. Now Saussure gave the signifier and signified. Now C.S. Peirce worked on Saussure's concept, signifier and signified, and he gave out three kinds of sign. One, icon, physical significance to the signified. I have given you image of cat. Okay, it is very evident that this is the symbol, this is the image of cat. So this is the icon, physical significance to the signified. Index, direct link between sign and object. Image of smoke is an index of fire. For example, image of smoke is an index of fire. In certain in certain electric rooms or electric meters, you have on electric meters you have signs of danger sign. Okay, so that is an index. That is an index, a link between the sign and the object. Symbol, no resemblance between signifier and signified. Example, symbol of Facebook, dominoes, etc. So, the symbol, the last kind of sign, in that last kind of sign, there is no relationship between the signifier and signified. There is no, logical connection. Okay, why Facebook's symbol appears in blue? No explanation. Okay, so the symbol is the the symbol talks about or symbol has no resemblance or relation between signifier and signified. Okay, no resemblance. Next, that was C.S. Peirce. Now come to Vladimir Propp. Vladimir Propp's work is very important, Morphology of Folktale. So like Levi Strauss, Vladimir Propp has also elaborated or researched on the concept of myth and how folk tales are organized on certain myths. Okay, engage with basic structural elements of Russian folk tales. So he explored Russian folk tales and laid out 31 narratives and characters. So he analyzed how the narrative unfolds in Russian folk tales. What are the common themes in Russian folk tales? Okay. Now I have given a list of all the 31 narratives. Absentia, one of the members of a family absents himself from home. Interdiction, and interdiction is addressed to the hero. Violation, the interdiction is violated. Reconnaissance, the villain makes an attempt at reconnaissance. Delivery, so he feels that these are the 31 basic fundamental narratives that operate in all Russian folk tales. Okay, I will pause here a bit. You can read the slide. Okay, so some of the last narratives you see, they are quite stereotypical. Recognition, the hero is recognized. Exposure, the false hero or villain is exposed. Transfiguration, the hero is given a new appearance. Punishment, the villain is punished. Wedding, the hero is married and ascends the throne. So, Vladimir Prop elaborated or researched, investigated systematically in the narration, in the narrative structure, the strategies of Russian folktales. Now come to Roland Barthes. So Roland Barthes is, his works on myths, mythologies is also important in structuralist theories. So his book titled Mythologies was published in 1957. What he had opined, myths cannot occur naturally. Myths reveal about social structure and ideology that governs a society. Modern versions of myths. He had, explored the modern versions of myths. He had looked into the old versions of myths and how the old versions of myths are improvised, redecorated in modern times. Some of the lines by Roland Barthes: the cultural work done in the past by gods and epic sagas is now done by laundry, detergent, commercials, and comic strip character. I think that cars today are almost the exact equivalent of the great Gothic cathedrals. I mean, the supreme creation of an era conceived with passion by unknown artists and consumed in image, if not in usage, by a whole population which appropriates them as a purely magical object. So there are more works by Roland Barthes, The Death of the Author, also his concept on text, the idea of text, okay? Image, music, and text, another seminal work. But, he's falling into the criticism section now. Okay, so till here, mythologies, I feel that, his work is related to structuralism. Now, I have given you some glossaries. Binary opposition. What is binary opposition? Okay, perceiving the world in opposites, okay, in opposite codes, contexts. Competence and performance, given by Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is another important figure, and his concept, competence and performance, is important for structuralists. Competence denotes a person's knowledge of his or her language and its rules, and performance denotes individual and specific utterances, thus use of knowledge. Okay, then next, deep structure and surface structure. This is also given by Noam Chomsky in his transformational grammar. Generative grammar, this is also by Chomsky, opined that it is possible by the application of a finite number of rewrite rules to predict the infinite number of sentences in a language and to specify their structure. Then narratology. Levi Strauss's works with the techniques of narration and narrative strategies, my themes, how myths are organized. Then next, formalists distinguished between fabula and sujet. Fabula, story or its raw materials. Sujet, plot, the way a story is organized. There is a difference, okay? Fabula is the story, and sujet is the technique in which the story is organized. Then Strauss distinguished between receipt, chronological order of events in a text, and narrative and history, the sequence in which events actually occur in narration. Okay, the act of narrating itself. Now, let's discuss for 2-3 minutes what are the similarities and differences between formalism and structuralism. First, both focus on analyzing formal elements of a particular text. But structuralism is different from formalism in terms of reading texts by comparison. They try to find out the universal structure. Okay, what is that universal structure that is common, that is universal to all cultures? So they do that by scientific study of texts. Formalism analyzes the structure of a text without focusing on the external factors such as authorship, social and cultural influence. Structuralism connects the work of a particular author with works of a similar structure, whereas formalism only organizes one particular work, only analyzes one particular work at a time. So formalists only invest their attention at one particular work at a given time. They don't compare. Okay, but structuralists, they compare and try to find out the underlying structure, which is universal. Structuralists relate literary texts to a larger structure. This larger structure can refer to a series of intertextual connections, which is intertextuality, a particular genre, how they operate, how texts in a particular genre operate. Now, for example, when a structuralist explored that how myths are organized, okay, how Russian folk tales are organized, how narrations unfold in Russian folk tales. Recurrent pattern or motifs, parallels between texts. So structuralists draw parallels. A model of universal narrative structure underlying universal structure. Formalists pay more attention to features like grammar, syntax, structure, and literary devices. Formalism is often regarded as anti-Marxism because it doesn't consider external principles influencing a work of art. They don't consider placing a work of art in its historical or socio-cultural framework. They consider that a work should be studied independently. A work should be studied only in terms of its formal elements, what are the principles that are operating within a work of art. Okay, so when they study the principles, the rules, the laws that are being applied in a particular work of art, they are arriving at explaining relations between form and content. Okay, so the formalists invested their attention in analyzing the formal elements of a single work of art. On the contrary, structuralism dealt in the formal elements, studied the formal elements. Along with it, they also sought for a universal structure, universal principle that is organizing, that is the organizing principle for all works of art in their own particular genres. So structuralism, is aimed at figuring out, the underlying structure, the common structure, the universal structure, and formalism is only concentrated in reading texts, in interpreting a text's formal elements, formal devices. Now, there are certain important e-readings. If it is feasible, if it is possible, I will send you the e-readings, or I can send to Saikat sir. He can send it to you. There are certain list of essays that are important for the concepts of structuralism and formalism. Yeah, so there are 2 questions.
Thank you
Thank
for
you, sir.
taking us back on a ride to formalism and structuralism. This is the precise on which our lecture series will move ahead. And I thank you on behalf of our team for so systematically, clinically, and elaborately
Thank you.
explaining all the basic concepts. I'm sure many concepts which you have explained in a very clear manner through various examples have clarified some of the doubts in our participants' minds. And of course, there are a few doubts as well where the participants are putting in the questions.
Yeah.
So I would be happy
Sir,
to.
can I take a break for 2 minutes, and then
Yes,
so that
most,
our
most well.
participants also take a break, and then we can engage in the question and answering sessions?
Yes, you
Okay.
can please take a break.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Two
come
minutes,
back.
and
No,
then
no
we'll back.
issues.
We'll
No
be back.
issues.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, formalism came as a reaction to Marxism. So yeah, Debashish, I have read your question. Do you think their steadfastness to form and techniques separated them from culture, politics altogether, and led to their disappearance by 1929? Well, that's a very good observation, Debashish. Now, you see, every art form should be studied in a scientific way. Yes, true, but also, by placing it in its historical and socio-cultural framework. Now, we can't exactly say that formalism disappeared entirely, because Roman Jacobson and Schlotzsky, and they continued their work in Prague Linguistic Circle, through Prague Linguistic Circle. So and they kept exploring the concepts of linguistic sign, signifier, signified, various types of signs. Okay, so they kept exploring the formal concepts of language, but their approach might have developed, diversified. Okay, so that's a good observation. Yeah, so now any other question
Yeah,
next?
the next question is by Tariq Ali. And
Yeah.
Tariq asks that what made them to come up with such a theory, that is formalism? Like, what was the
Mhm.
driving force behind it? Why did they think this was necessary?
Okay, so Tariq, when I was beginning my lecture, I said that formalism started as a reaction against impressionism and post-impressionism. Now, those artists, impressionist and post-impressionist artists, they felt, they opined that subject matter is very important, and how they gave importance to the visual representation of the subject. Now they only considered the aesthetic attributes of a work of art, the aesthetic elements. Now the formalism, uh, you know uh, they formalists engaged in scientific systematic study. So at that time, they came up with interpreting the formal elements, so that a work could be judged, a work could be interpreted in a logical, in a rational way, apart from judging a work of art in its say emotional context or aesthetic contexts only. Okay.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next question, I would like to thank SS Sahu and Gunjan Kumar Jha for sharing the Telegram link. Please, dear participants, join the Telegram link of Dialexis. It is in this link that we will share the e-study resources for you. The next question is by Rachna Bharadwaj. Ma'am, you placed metaphors on the vertical axis, that is the paradigmatic analysis.
Mm-hmm.
But what can be categorized under the horizontal axis, that is syntagmatic axis?
Okay. Horizontal axis works in a linear way. You consider a straight line, okay? A straight line, that is the horizontal axis. Now, in horizontal axis, when I am speaking, now, for example, this I can see this message, sir, please share Telegram group link. So, the words are combined in a particular order, sequential arrangement of words. So the words follow a certain rule, a grammar. Okay, now this is the horizontal axis. Okay, combination, we are combining different words in a particular order. So this is the horizontal axis, this is the syntagmatic axis, and syntagm or syntagmatic axis is inherent in poetry or in prose. Okay, in novels, in fictions, essays, any sort of discourse. Okay, the horizontal axis, the syntagmatic axis is very much present. But in poetry, the paradigmatic axis is very, very important. Okay, it plays a major role. The paradigmatic axis, the metaphors. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. The next question is, if we apply formalism, the text is seen in isolation. So doesn't it tend to reduce the literature to little more than a collection of rhetorical devices?
Yeah, okay. That's a good question. Yeah. So, that's why, the structuralist came in the context. The structuralists started to, diverge, develop the concepts. They did not read a text in isolation. They did not read a text independently. They compared, contrasted. Okay, Vladimir Prop, then then Charles Sanders Peirce, okay, Jacobson, Levi Strauss, they all, when they came up with theories of myths and narration, so they are, comparing, they are trying to find what is the underlying or the common structure governing, different genres of work. So yeah, formalism would be reduced to only to the interpretation of rhetorical devices, formal elements, form. Okay, but it also talks about, you have to understand, it also talks about making a concept, representing a concept in an unfamiliar way, to make, the theory of defamiliarization. Now, yes, formalists will engage in how the text became unfamiliar, or how the technique of defamiliarization is achieved. Okay, so the formal elements are also important, because when we are interpreting a work of art, we have to focus on the principles that are ruling a work of art, and also, the structure, say the universal structure, because the laws of poetry, it is applied not only to a particular poem. Poets, those who compose poems, they are all aware of the fundamental rules and laws of poetry. Okay. Yeah. The next question.
Thank you. We move on to the next question, and that is basically an observation. So there's a question about which a part of the lecture, like a series, a topic, will be dealt on later on, that is new criticism. But still, if you would like to throw some light, this has been asked twice, thrice. Tanvi asked that what is the basic difference between formalism and new criticism?
Yeah. So when the formalists, they started to diverge or develop their concepts. Okay, they started to study that, how narration is structured, how narratives are structured, what are the universal laws, what are the basic structures, fundamental structures. Then they started to engage in questions like, what are the different layers of meanings, what are the different layers of meanings, how different words could be perceived differently. Roland Barthes, he gave this idea of text. Okay, he says that text is like an organism, living and breathing organism. So when we are setting our interpretation to a work of art, the text emerges. So, Roland Barthes, then Julia Kristeva, intertextuality, how a text has underlying, layers of meanings, multiple meanings. So intertextuality, Julia Kristeva, Roland Barthes, they all, start coming under new criticism. Yeah.
We take the last question of the day, and that is towards the end of the PPT. This is by Vomakeshri. She says that towards the end of the PPT, I felt there is more of archetypal criticism that has emerged out of structuralist approach, since myths and folklores are analyzed in archetypal criticism. Kindly explain.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yes, that's true. Archetypal criticism. So now archetypes, what are archetypes? Archetypes are, stereotypes, stereotypical conventions. So when, myths are organized, certainly they follow an archetypal pattern. They follow a stereotypical pattern. Okay. So archetypal criticism, or you can research about how myths can be archetypes, how myths can be perceived as archetypes. Okay, archetypal criticism can also be a part of mythologies, mythological studies.
Fine. So with that, I think we come to the conclusion of a very enriching and very interactive session. I'm sure this session has helped clarify many doubts of the upcoming researchers and theorists, with the aim of which this particular lecture series is being organized. Before we leave, before we call it a day, I would request my co-organizer, our very own Shreya ma'am, to please convey a word of thanks.
Well, a very good evening to all of you. On behalf of Team DAATH VOYAGE, I would really like to congratulate our speaker of the day, Dr. Barnashree Khasnobis, for an outstanding presentation. It really warms my heart when I see a speaker so young, an upcoming scholar, giving such a well-organized, such a lucid, at the same time such an in-depth presentation. I'm sure Dr. Barnashree has very much kind of followed the suggestions that we had made to her, and it would be of really great value to all the participants. The way she has talked about formalism, the way she has talked about structuralism, the way she has talked about the major critiques, the major texts, and most importantly, Barnashree, I congratulate you for the way you have shown how such theories can be applied to analyze certain text. In fact, your analysis of T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men was really very good. I think everyone could understand what these theories are all about, and I think she has succeeded in kind of letting the participants, the students, the upcoming scholars escape the fear of theories. So I think you have done a really beautiful job. And I was thinking today, this morning, and I keep on saying that it is not our platform, it is a platform for all of us. It is your platform too. And you see, this is a platform where we have thrown it open to sound, a platform that has been thrown open to sound scholarship. It does not matter which part of India you come from. It does not matter to which institute you belong. As long as you are a good scholar, you are welcome here. At the moment, maybe as a participant, but maybe in the next series as a speaker. Shoikat and I have no problems about that. As long as your scholarship is good, you are, automatically a part of DAATH VOYAGE, right? So once again, on my personal behalf and on behalf of Team DAATH VOYAGE, I thank you, Dr. Barnashree Khasnobis for sparing so much time for us and for giving what I really think is an outstanding presentation. I thank all the participants for being with us today. And as Shoikat has already mentioned, we are old school. We expect you to listen carefully, make your own notes, think about it, and that is how we learn. This is a teaching learning process. We have, we don't give assignments, we don't have exams, nothing of the sort. It is, old school, as I told you, the way we think teaching and learning should be followed. I also thank our behind the screen, invisible group of volunteers whom we will introduce to you one of these days. See, Shoikat has also shown you the notes that he himself has taken. And yeah, he's showing it to all the participants. This is how we expect all the participants to receive the lectures. This is the pleasure of learning. This is what we are trying to inculcate, the pleasure of learning, and to do away completely with the fear of theories. How to love theory and how to be able to apply that theory to text. You can only do it when you love it. Otherwise, it's not possible. You see, then theory is in one different box and your texts are in another different box, and the twain do not meet. So that is what we are trying to break, right? So once again, thank you, Barnashree.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such an overwhelming compliment. I'm happy that you all enjoyed it, all liked it. So that is my biggest reward. Thank you so much.
No, indeed. I keep on saying that these series, it's going to be a cerebral feast where each day we partake of a different dish, so to speak. So today it was mind-blowing, outstanding, Barnashree. I am very glad that you agreed to speak and you did such a wonderful, wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
So tomorrow we meet again at 6 for another cerebral feast. And this time we take on from where Barnashree stops today. Tomorrow we talk about post-structuralism and deconstruction. So we will meet again tomorrow.
We have a wonderful speaker tomorrow once again, Dr. Priti Chakraborty. He is a very good speaker, and in fact, all the speakers in this platform will be a great value addition to all of us. It is my humble request on behalf of DAATH VOYAGE to please ensure that you don't miss a lecture. All these lectures will be very, helpful for all of us. So thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging words and for going through the PPTs and giving your feedbacks. And Barnashree's PPT ma'am had gone through and she had given a feedback that it is absolutely fine, which I somehow could not convey to Barnashree. A little bit official, commitments. I was not able to, as you can see, I'm sitting in the office. So that's it. It was a pleasure to witness such a wonderful lecture and to see so many participants joining and still remaining during the question answer session, which we feel is one of the USPs of our lecture series. So with with those words, thank you very much. Thank you, Shreya ma'am. As always, your presence soothes us a lot. Thank you so much. And thank you, Barnashree. Looking forward to having you again in the near future. Please take care. Good night. See you all tomorrow. Good night.